Happy Sunday, apprentices. So what's your favorite position? Mine's double top. That's what's next on today's show. Trading Forex or any other financial instrument carries substantial risk. The topics discussed on this show are the views of the host and the producers only. You should consult with your financial planner before investing in Forex or any other financial instrument. Don't be a dumbass.
Welcome to the Day Trading Plumber, episode 42. I'm Matt Simpson, but you're not here for me.
You should do the goat, dude.
42, bud.
42.
This.
So the show's older than me now. I guess 42 weeks doesn't compare to 41 years.
That's different?
Yeah. Struggling with that.
Shut your mouth. The microphone's up around my shoulders, dude.
I will have to say, this is probably the most comfortable setup we've had compared to overly large basement, then kitchen table, which sucked for 2 episodes. But now we're in a little office here. I'm in a comfortable chair. It doesn't squeak.
Who cares about comfort? I will always suffer for the art.
Okay.
Yeah. Nobody's surprised enough to say that.
I got our sound denting tiles I still need to hang.
Yeah, didn't you hang it earlier?
Yeah. Apparently double-sided tape doesn't stick to foam too well. But I was just getting the feel. But I'm probably going to have to, spray adhesive it on, some plywood's a little aggressive, but some Formica board. And hang that on the wall. Because, I don't want to tear up the walls.
Do you know why the number 42 is special?
42? No.
I don't think anybody's surprised. What is that, a Corona?
It is a Corona. We're going Corona today. Although in the live event, I was drinking Budweiser or Bud Light Seltzer.
You finally got that coffee machine working. Thanks for making the effort.
It is amazing. I don't know if I could go back to drip coffee because now I have the espresso machine and
pronounce that again.
Espresso.
Espresso.
Espresso. Now they have the high dollar machine and have been spoiled the last week. The other day, I was like, after I drank my cappuccino, I had a normal Keurig coffee, which used to be plenty fine for me. I was like, I need a little bit more. I need something to sip on while I'm waking up, even though I just did 4 shots of espresso.
Say it again.
Espresso. I made a cup of Keurig coffee. First sip, I was like, what is... Oh, it's horrible.
Have you ever noticed how number 42 is on baseball players' jerseys?
No, I don't watch baseball.
I thought you were a numbers guy.
I am. However,
42 represents the most important player in all of baseball.
Reggie Jackson.
Mr. October.
Still.
No, dude.
Babe Ruth?
No, dude.
Jack Hobb?
Jackie Robinson, bud.
Jackie Robinson, the first African-American player, right?
He was also an all-star track athlete, UCLA.
I did know that.
Yep, guy was a stud.
He was a damn good baseball player, too.
And it was Branch Rickey who had the balls to bring him on. And it's Branch Rickey whose statue is outside Coors Field. Did you know that?
Did not know that.
Why don't you talk about trading, because you seem to know about that.
Well, that's what the show's about.
Okay.
Not statues downtown.
You were busy this morning. You had an interview on Gorilla's Forex community.
Yeah, I got reached out or tapped on the shoulder last night on Instagram of all places. And it was actually pretty lucky because, when someone sends you a random message on Instagram, it goes into a different pile if they're not followers or friends. So usually that pile, I just don't respond because they're all the same. Hello, where are you from?
How are you today?
This one was like, hey, bro, I'd love to have you on my podcast or my YouTube channel. It's not necessarily a podcast yet, but I'd love to interview you. I interview traders and just like to figure out their story. And yeah, it was a good interview. We talked for about an hour before he started recording.
I don't know how he got through that.
Actually got to where he's like, man, we just need to start recording. You're divulging all of your good stuff. And I'm like, don't worry, dude. I could talk for days. And I felt it was a pretty good interview. I'll put a link to it once he posts it in our own podcast and show notes. But it was a great conversation. And the more I'm talking to people from other countries, because let's just face it, born and raised in Colorado, I've never traveled to Europe. I've been to Mexico. That's pretty much the only other country I've been to.
Pretty much, or is?
Is. I had to think there for a minute. I almost been to Canada. Been to Alaska, so maybe flying over Canada
doesn't count.
Counts.
Nope.
Yeah, talking to people, Australians now, quite a few of them. Some people in Great Britain, some people in London. Today, talking to a guy in, where was he from?
Probably still is.
Where was he? The guy he wanted to join the channel.
Turkey.
The very, getting experience talking to all these different people from overseas.
What's up, Dundar? Sorry if I mispronounced it. It's Dundar. Turkish. He's a Turk.
I would definitely mispronounce that.
I'm really sorry if I butchered that, dude.
When I was trying to find him on Telegram, because he's like, hey, send me a note on Telegram, so I have it. I just spelled out his name, but it has all these hyphens. And, I don't even know if hyphens are the right terminology for what's when you see some of these names from overseas and when it come up. And I just find it really surprising when I talk to people overseas what a small world it has become. Because like today I did an hour-long podcast with someone in London over Zoom, and it felt like I was talking to someone, at King Soopers right down the street. Of course, there was an accent and a little, a couple words. I was like, what does that mean? He's like, oh, it means idiot where you guys are at. But yeah, it was a good podcast. Great interview. I always love talking trading. We talked a lot about equities. Full disclosure, I told him, I'm an equities investor, not so much trader yet. I am hoping to branch out and I'm going to start a demo account and start trying to day trade equities here once I have these courses finished and I got a little bit more time on my hands and I'm back in my comfort zone. I'd really love to test some of the strategies. I'm really worried about doing that is it might mess up my trading with Forex. That's why I haven't done that in the last decade. Because when I decided to do Forex, it was let's focus on one thing till we get it mastered. But, the more you go down the path, you never master trading. It's one of those things, it's just kind of like Plumber. Even though you have a master's license, every time you build a building, every time there's new products, there's different connections, there's code books that change, new additions, different municipalities changing rules. So you never truly master the trade, But you do get to a certain point where you know a pipe's going to leak when you solder it. I know when I'm soldering a pipe, if it's not taking right, it's going to leak. And when you're in your earlier years, you're like, oh, I really hope that works. Even though it didn't feel the same, didn't pull in that solder the same. I'm going to go ahead and turn the water on anyways, because it might just hold. Let's get to the point of the show. Double top.
Waiting on you, bud.
I was waiting on, you're supposed to be the lead. You're supposed to be like, hey man, aren't we supposed to be talking about double tops?
Do you not introduce yourself as the host of the Day Trading Plumber?
Yes.
Then shut your hole.
But you're the producer. You're the
taskmaster.
Yeah. So double tops. Okay, guys, there's a lot of reversal patterns. Head and shoulders. You could just go on and on. One of my favorite patterns is double top. And I like it because it works so well on pretty much any time frame you choose to take your entries on. And I use the double top really for my entry, where most people will see it double top, wait for it to break that low, and then they enter. That's the confirmation. I typically enter right when it's reaching the top. And what I mean is it basically makes a U shape. It makes a U shape, and when it's retesting that top, that's when I enter. A lot of other traders will wait for it to test that top, drop, and then break below where that U, the bottom of the U. And that, that's a safer way to play. However, I typically have already done my analysis and have used Fibonacci retracement levels to tell me when the probabilities are in my favor that it is going to double top. And it's kind of hard to explain without a chart, but if you see an impulse move up or down and price pulls back, meaning let's just say it's going bullish, reaches a high or tests a new resistance level and pulls back and only gets to the 0.23 or the 3.8 and then comes back, you have a higher probability of that double topping than if it came all the way down to the half, the 0.5 or the 618 level. If it came down to those two levels, then you're not looking for a double top. You're looking for an extension of that trend. I use those forecasting tools to kind of tell me a double top, we have a higher probability a double top's about to happen. So that's why I feel confident entering at the top. Now, there is occasionally where I'm completely wrong and it goes skyrocketing past that double top. And, then we just go to work. We start working on a rollover. We start working on is it a fake double top, meaning it's going to breast a new high and then drop? So, a double top is just one of those patterns that I see over and over and over again when you're looking back at charts where price reversed. You just have to be ready for price to get really sporadic and really choppy at that level. And, that's what I was talking about today in our live event with our Telegram channel subscribers is, when you've hit it, when you've identified a really good level for either a reversal or a strong breakout, because price will get really choppy at that level. And it's almost like it's designed to where I know a lot of people are going to get in at this level. A lot of buyers, a lot of sellers, right? It's a strong resistance level. It's double topping. It's not like I'm the only one in the world that knows double top. When you hit that level, you're going to see the battle begin between bears and bulls. That's what pushes that price 50, 60 pips up and down. And that very scenario is what psychologically starts to make you think, I'm wrong, I'm right, I'm wrong, I'm right. And, that's why I preach all the time, plant the seed and just get ready for the ride. Especially if you are a reversion of mean trader and oftentimes your trade is counter trend, you got to be ready to manage that trade quickly. And if you're double top hunting and trading from the top, you're going for a ride. It's going to push a little higher, fake you out. Then it might drop a little bit, and then you're like, yeah, I'm right. No, wait, I'm wrong. But, if you're trading a 15-minute time frame, you may go through 3 or 4 candles before it really shows itself. Which 3 or 4 candles, you're talking about an hour, into 2 hours, 8 candles. So
a candle is every 15 minutes?
Right, on a 15-minute chart.
What's a candle on a 4-hour chart?
4 hours. So, if you're looking at a monthly chart, one candle is the price movement within that month. And you'd be surprised at how many people have traded quite some time and still don't know that. A lot of them come from Robinhood. They don't even have candles on Robinhood. It's just a line. And it's funny when I look at my Robinhood account on my phone app, you're like daily, yearly. It's just like Greek to me, the way the charts are on there. There's absolutely no way anyone could be doing any kind of technical analysis off their Robinhood app. I use my Robinhood kind of like my MT4 app on my phone. I'll do my charting on TradingView, and then I will just execute trade on my Robinhood.
Well, remember that Robinhood was designed, and it's because of Robinhood that we no longer have commissions on the other platforms, E-Trade.
Thank you, Robinhood.
Thank you, Robinhood.
If you want to sponsor the show.
For doing the right thing. But it was designed to remove points of friction and to get people trading, to get people in the action. It's just like how casinos make it as easy as possible for you to play any game, and how they're totally willing to teach you. The dealers and the managers totally discourage other players scoffing at new players. They're removing the points of friction because they just want you having the action.
Right.
My point is that you're giving something away for that ease, and that may be the really heavy features that you would expect maybe on MT4 or TradingView.
Well, MT4 app, far inferior to its desktop app, and when you talk capabilities, right? However, you can still draw a trend line. You have the options of candles or line or, some indicators, not all. And, TradingView makes an app that has everything, pretty much everything you have on the desktop. So you would think Robinhood, after it was established, and now you hear it in rap songs, and it's pretty popular. Once you make a rap song, that's like when you made it, right? When you got TikTok videos talking about trading my Robinhood account.
But again, they've removed all of the points of friction that they can think of right now, or that they have the technology to remove, right? And because of that, they're opening their potential audience, their potential client base to as many people as possible. In fact, I read an article today about how the retail trader age, it was 20 to 25 maybe, has exploded because of their, quote, stimulus checks.
You're right. 70% of the stimulus checks went to Robinhood.
Because they can't gamble because there are no sports, and people want the action. They want to be doing something. And Robinhood has been the platform for that.
Well, I've seen a spike in interest with podcasts and, what I'm doing through this COVID.
We just came off our best week ever, by the way.
Because people are starting to wake up and realize one source of revenue that can be wiped out by a governor saying you're non-essential is probably not going to be the norm anymore.
Just like we talked about in March when this whole thing went down. We said people are going to evolve or they're going to really struggle. And the conversation just with us has changed. We have people from all over asking us who never thought that they would be traders. They would always just leave it to their 401k managers, etc.
Yeah, and if you're a Gen, what are we, Gen X?
You and I are, well, I'm technically a millennial. I'm at the very beginning of it, which is embarrassing.
Yeah, but we'll give you a pass.
And then our kids are Gen A, I think.
So I'm Gen X. And in my lifetime, right, I was in my early to mid-20s, 2008. The unprecedented drop of the market. I haven't seen anything like this in years. Well, I've lived through 2 of those now. Now, we haven't seen the full story's not over yet with this COVID. If you look at a chart, it looks like a V-shaped recovery right now. However, the markets took a major dump today.
And yesterday,
right after it tested. Soon as it is, you talk about pivots or target levels. The second the S&P, and the Dow hit the very price at it made 100% recovery, it has been bearish the last 2 days, which tells me everyone was targeting that level, right? ETFs, machine trading, big money, right? Like, hey, keep buying until you hit this level. Then let's sit back, take a break. I personally think, and that's why we chose double top as the topic tonight. If you look at the chart, the S&P just double topped. It's a U-shaped, you could call it a recovery, but when price hits a resistance level or a level that strong and it can't break through, now the market's personality takes over. The emotions of the trader, right? It's exactly like if you have an inclination that the steam engine can't make it up the hill, but you're like, no one else is worried, so I have an inclination. That steam engine gets to where it's been before and totally starts to gas out. That's what a double top is. Price has gotten there before, and you're pretty confident it'll at least get to that level again. But when it gets to that level, you see it struggling, meaning small candles, large wicks. We've talked about price action or candlestick patterns on the show before. But you could see price momentum slowing down, divergence, all these things that we look at to see a directional change. And if you see that, a lot more people emotionally start losing that bullish nature, right? Like, oh, the steam engine's definitely making it. Look, he's going great. It's going good. It's going good. That's all you hear on Yahoo Finance and Squawk Box and all these media outlets, which is funny to me because if you watch those shows, they're about 12 hours behind. Some of them are good, but really, just like what we're seeing politically, these media outlets are owned by people. And the narratives are all kind of the same. And they're all funded by these people managing trillions of dollars. And they control the narrative. They're telling us what we want to hear. Everything's good. Look at the recovery. It's all good. We're in some really unprecedented times where we're having the fastest drops and the fastest recoveries. I started to see a narrative form this week that really got me puzzled. I can't remember the actual the entity or association that classifies a recession. Starts to end.
It's 2 consecutive quarters having declining performance.
There's a certain, like the Farmer's Almanac.
What's that last word?
Farmer's Almanac. They deemed we're in a recession. Started in February. But guess what? We're already on the recovery. So it's like this narrative's already being told to us in the masses that hey, we already went through the recession. We're good, right? Because what have I been saying since December 2018? That huge sell-off in December 2018 in the equities market where it dropped all the way to the 200 moving average and dead stopped and quickly recovered and tested the top. Then we shot up even higher, that May, where I was predicting spring will probably be in a full-blown recession by spring. Well, I was completely wrong. Busted new highs. And we were pushing new highs every week. COVID comes. Big. Then a V-shaped recovery. And, a little bit of dip. It's too early to tell if the last 2 days is going to be a really, really good reversal. What's crazy to me is now the narrative is, oh, that was the recession. Now we're going to just skyrocket to all kinds of new highs. It's just a really weird time as a trader.
What's the difference between a double top and a failed double top?
Okay. Like I said earlier, when that pullback happens, I like to use the Fibonacci retracement indicator tool to kind of gauge how deep that pullback went to kind of tell me the probabilities of double top. Now, when it tests that new top, some people will tell you it has to completely reject at the exact moment that last high was. I still consider double top if it almost tests it, meaning a little lower, or a little higher, right? Like if you were to draw a line across the top, the line is skewed up, meaning the second test is just a little higher. And the reason being is those people, those traders that are playing in the exact game, entered right at that exact high and may have already gotten stopped out because they put a super tight stop loss on a double top because they're like, it's either going to reverse right at this level or I want to be out. And that's why you'll see price go just a little higher, fake everyone out. And if you're really new to trading and you're looking for that double top, as soon as it breaks that new high, you switch and now you're a buyer. Breakout. So that's why the emotions of the market pushes that new high, and then a bunch of people switch their positions and go long. But let's just face it, only, I think statistically, 7 to 9% of the volume being traded in Forex are retail traders. I mean, it's nothing. We're nobodies. We barely have a vote. However, all these podcasts and trading courses and all these YouTube channels are all about retail traders, and they're all being taught the same way. And these institutions that have the power to move the market, let's just face it, they will push price a little higher.
Speaking of institutional traders, in billions, great season that we're having, by the way. Are you caught up?
I was caught up, but now I got rid of cable and all I have is Roku, and I don't want to pay for the...
So Axe Capital, run by Bobby Axelrod.
Bobby Axelrod.
And then he has Taylor Mason. from
She's
Mace
back,
Cap.
right? She's
Yep.
back.
They would have a Forex division, right? And would that be an institution?
Hedge funds, yeah. Institution would be more, Bobby Axelrod, of course, kind of money. Institution would be more like Swiss Bank, right?
So the actual bank.
Banks.
Okay.
Now,
Not a trader using the bank, but the bank itself.
yes.
Taking the opposite position.
Right. So
Okay.
banks are the ones providing these brokers the liquidity, right? Let's just walk through it. So a person or a group of people decide they want to be a Forex broker. Well, they either got to have the cash or capital to take the opposite trade themselves, or they got to go to someone who does. And, when they go to the JP Morgan Chases or, Bank of America's or, Swiss Bank, they go to them and they say, look, we have all this technology, all of, these safeties in place. So will you back us and take the opposite trade? Now, these banks also have their own Forex market planners and strategists because let's just face it, banks do business overseas. So they want to make sure these transactions are, when they have to make them, they're at the best price. That's why there's a Forex market. And they have their own institutional traders, right? That are actually trying to make profit off trades. Statistically, just providing liquidity to brokers for retail traders, they're going to win because most retail traders lose. And the actual traders for the bank always know where those positions are. And, they got risk managers and people always keeping an eye on it. And, they might be taking trades to hedge some of those trades that are happening with the liquidity market. There's this always, in full disclosure, I've never worked for a bank. It's not like I have drinks with the guy who does. I've just kind of pieced this together with what I've learned over the years. Now, these institutional traders, they're simply trying to drive price to areas where they can fill orders, right? Their job is to Four Seasons Bank in Canada needs to transfer $10 million. How do I get the best price?
Is that like a casino moving the betting line as bets come in to encourage action? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it craps? Are you talking about
No,
craps?
no. I'm talking about sports betting. So let's say on Monday for a Sunday football game, the line is 4.5 favoring the home team.
But no one's betting.
So
they're like, let's squeeze another point out of it.
So let's move it to 3.5. And then they start getting action. Because what they're doing is they're trying to get it as close to an even bet, want the away team versus the home team covering, because they make their money on the VIC.
Right.
And the VIC is the rip from the winning bet. Is that the same thing? That they're trying to push it to a point where there's more action?
Yeah, and theoretically it's just supply and demand, right? If price is too high, got no buyers, so it starts to fall. Now, you just got all these different motivation, right? A retail trader, our motivation is we're going to speculate on where price is going to go in hopes that we're going to make profit. Some of these institutions, they already know how much money they need to convert or transfer from one currency to another. They have a little bit of time because everyone in the business of overseas transactions understands, just look at a Forex chart. It can move 2,000 pips in a day. If you're willing to wait and put it in the hands of some experienced institutional traders, they will get that money moved at the best price possible while they're managing risk. So if you give them like, hey, I don't want this instantaneous transfer, right? Like I had a conversation with a colleague of mine when I worked for the hotel brand. He was from Canada and he just moved to America. And he was talking about transferring his 401k from Canada Bank to America Bank. And I was like, well, dude, you might want to wait because it's like the worst time possible on the USD CAD. You're going to lose a lot of money if you do it now.
Because the CAD is weak?
You're right. The CAD was really weak versus the dollar. And I'm like, just 2 weeks ago, you know, I forget the actual number we worked out, but it was like considerable. Like 2 weeks ago, you'd be $7,000 more. So I was like, let's just watch it. And maybe it bounces back and I think he waited probably 2 or 3 weeks. And when it came back up, I was like, now seems like a good time. That exact process is happening every day in real life.
Every second.
Every second. And, these institutions that are providing liquidity to all the brokers that us retail traders use. And they're also having to juggle these transactions and deal with customers like, okay, Four Seasons, how long can you wait for this? If you give me 2 weeks, right, I'll find the best time. And of course, everyone's making money along the way, right? It's just like, who started Visa?
Going the other way, does the double bottom follow the same pattern in reverse?
Yes.
It's the same thing. Just
same thing, a double top, double bottom.
Has the same stresses?
Same exact psychology of price action, right? Price tested as support. It bounced. Now it's retesting. And that is where most people are waiting for, right? Because it's next to, it's really hard to pick that exact moment price is going to bounce. A lot of my style is that very thing. I don't know how many trades I've been in where I picked that exact moment or within, 50, 60 pips, that price will bounce. Support, resistance. And when it does, I don't necessarily that first trade, if I'm in that profitable trade now, I will take my profit early and then wait for it to see if it double bottoms or double tops. And then I will re-enter that pair again. But I'm not shy to take a guess at where I think price is going to bounce on that first bounce. A lot of traders will let it bounce. This is like what we've said before, where don't be predictive, be reactive. So it bounced. Now you're reacting to the bounce. And then you're still predicting that it's going to double bottom or double top. That's why, to me, that whole phrase is confusing. Because no matter what you do in trading, you're predicting. Yes, you're letting price bounce. Then you're seeing where it retracts, right? Where it pulls back to on a Fibonacci, if that's how you do it. And then oftentimes I'll take that first trade on the bounce, take my profit. When it starts to slow down near one of those lower fib retracements, let it go back down, confirm that double bottom or double top, and then that's when I go in for that longer swing trade and go for the longer, a much bigger take profit.
Remember how we talked about the $600 weekly quote-unquote stimulus, even though governments can't stimulate anything, right? I'm really concerned that, because we were just talking about Robinhood, I'm really concerned that people haven't taken that money to develop new skills as laborers. I'm bothered by it, actually. Because learning skills is expensive either with time or with money, because money buys speed. There is good news, though, because it has forced companies to reimagine their supply chains. Now, in construction's kind of slow in that way, because we are the product, we are the users of manufacturers' innovation. But restaurants are reducing their menus because of the plague. Did you know that?
Well, it's like a free. Here's a frustrating thing. I go into 7-Eleven. They're essential. They're allowed to be open.
7-Eleven is a convenience store gas station.
Yeah, for our overseas listeners. But the bathrooms closed. So like,
are they afraid you're going to sneak a free pee?
Well, no, I think it's just become this free for all where if you operate a business, health code, you have to have a public restroom, has to have at least 120 degrees, no hotter, no colder, and it has to get hot within 30 seconds.
You mean the water?
The water, the sink, right? So now, then this COVID shutdown essential, nightmare, businesses are choosing what tasks they want to provide or not. So like,
they're definitely using it as an excuse.
Right. So like I go in this and I need to go. So like if I'm out and about, don't get me wrong, I would love to make it home. However, when I'm out and about, my go-to is like, gas station, gotta go. So you pull over, you go in there, and they got water bottles stocked in the bathroom, and you're like, "Where's the restroom?" "Oh, we don't have a restroom. COVID, right?" And or I'm trying to get new plates on my car. Okay, so the process is royally fucked up now. I have to drop off my paperwork in an envelope, and then they'll call me when they're ready to open it. And then I have to drive down on an appointment. Or if I just, by the luck of the draw, and I don't know how many times I've gone to the DMV and had all the right paperwork and everything perfect, they will charge me over the phone and mail me the tags. And you cannot tell me this is because we're trying to social distance. No. We're just doing what we don't want to deal with people.
But that's a government agency, and the government agency doesn't have to change for anybody. It doesn't matter, because you'll notice that they were still employed while all of our friends were told that they didn't matter.
Right.
My point is that private enterprise restaurants have reduced their menus. Well, what does that mean? Let's think about the and then what and then what and then what. What it does is it streamlines the supply chain. So now you have less product selection, which means that you can concentrate on what your money makers are.
Right.
And you have a lower risk of end of shelf life hitting you and then waste, which is huge in the restaurant business, who are already on slim margins.
Right.
And too many choices can become too expensive to manage.
Well, dude, it's no doubt when you run a restaurant or an F&B, to have too many selections just kills you in food cost. And it kills you in reprinting. Think about it. Every time you change that, you got to reprint all those menus. You got to retrain your customer. I think you hit the nail on the head in the beginning of all this. This will be, and it quite honestly could be why we're seeing this push in equities. This is the perfect excuse for companies to dump all of the waste that they couldn't before because us pretentious customers or investors were demanding all this stuff. But now it's like, hey man, just stay open, stay profitable, cut costs. And this surge of, you made an example of manpower, right? Manpower is the biggest problem in construction, always.
It's the biggest risk.
It's the biggest risk. It's the hardest commodity to find. And quite frankly, the employee had the leverage 4 months ago. Hey, you're lucky to have me. Now the company's like, hey, motherfucker, you're lucky you have a job. And then now there's 10 others like you that were at our competitors that are on the street. So we're going to trade up. And I think that's why we're seeing that surge in equities is smart investors and CEOs of companies. They're seeing this, right? Target no longer has to carry this they get to pick and choose what hours they're open now.
And they don't have to carry 5 substitutes for every product either.
Right. I mean, do you think labor unions are demanding overtime right now?
Target is a massive retail store that competes with Walmart.
I like how you keep explaining.
Well, we have an international audience. You should see our map, dude.
All right.
You should see our
Is
map.
Target not everywhere?
No.
So you could be $1 billion a year company and not be known in London?
Absolutely. Can you name a British $1 billion company? Exactly.
No.
That's right. Barclays, maybe? That's an easy one.
I don't want to offend anyone, but I was going to say Dyson, but that's Great Britain. Used to be.
Where's Great Britain?
In Europe.
Okay. Where in Europe is Great Britain?
I'm thinking London.
Okay. Where is London in Great Britain or is London in Germany?
London is in Europe.
Okay.
It's not Germany.
The island group that London's on, what's that called?
Well, you got the British,
Uh-huh.
which is Great Britain.
Is it? Okay.
Right?
Sure.
But London is somewhere different.
Okay.
Are you telling me they're in the same country?
I'm telling you that London is in Britain, which is England.
England. Okay. So Great Britain's just like a different city in England.
You think Britain's a city?
I don't know. A country?
Great Britain is the empire.
Okay.
England is its sovereign nation. Okay?
See, I would have thought England. Okay, now I'm getting it. Great Britain is like America. But, so we have states.
Yeah, but England and Scotland are their own sovereign nations under the British Empire.
Okay. All right. I'm getting it.
In Northern Ireland as well.
See, it's easy to differentiate Ireland from England and Germany. But for some reason, I always just thought of the Brits are in their own country.
I can't help you. Speaking of Germany, restaurant bookings have fully recovered in Germany.
Good.
Now, some will say that that's because they had tight control over the plague. I will, of course, tell you that I have zero respect for the plague, but that's not a secret, in that the activity rebounded quickly as the lockdowns eased because they quote-unquote did it right. And I would say that people have just had enough and that they're just doing it. In fact, now they still have the distancing protocol and you have to book in advance and all that. But the restaurants are popping in Germany from what I read, which is really exciting to see.
And then I saw where Switzerland never closed down and they have the lowest rate. Well, all those people that used to say, why don't we run our government like Switzerland? It's like, well, they're tiny.
They have to be that way because of all the surrounding nations.
Right. And I don't want to get too down far the rabbit hole, but it's just very funny to me how the plague or COVID, it's the smartest virus I've ever heard of.
Yeah, it totally discriminates. It depends on what kind of protest.
Right. If you're protesting.
It cares about the cause of the protest.
Right. And you can go out to eat, but you better be home by 10. It knows sun went down, you better get home.
Do you think that we're desperate for hope? Do you think that, and we talked about this last week, that equities traders are optimistic in their nature?
Well, let's just face it. Equities, the whole world runs better when everyone's bullish in equities.
Do you think that anything that looks like a V recovery is what we lock onto?
I think it makes for a very good narrative. I think everyone... Let's just put it this way. When COVID happened and 20, 30, 40% loss in equities, S&P, Dow, that causes panic. And panic financially. And let's just face it, a lot of Americans and a lot of people are putting their trust in these so-called institutions to invest for us. They've been telling us for years. It's safe. Obviously, markets can go down, but if you stick it out, they'll come back. So markets do pretty much what everyone did not expect them to do. They recover when jobs are being lost and companies are potentially going to go bankrupt. However, we're not seeing that at all. Is it a bubble? The fundamentals tell me. I mean, it's almost like this paradigm shift when you could start a startup and not make profit for 10 years and still get investors to invest at super high evaluations. Like, has Uber even made a profit and they're valued at 80 billion? It's like, when did this paradigm shift happen? Is there just so much money that we can just be pumping it into an idea or dream?
I would argue that there's so much risk capital available.
Exactly. And that's what it's really scary, because it's like, is this a bubble? Or do we need some sort of fundamental narrative to cause a small blip in the road before we go to the moon? And what scares me about going to the moon, like the S&P shooting to like 8,000, which should all be really good for all of us, right? Is the devaluation of what's dollar worth? Are we going to need $1 million to buy milk in 60 years? These recessions and recalibrations are a natural way to keep inflation down. For me, it's just, we're in really weird, unprecedented times. And I think I was telling you before we start recording, I would never guess I would ever see in my lifetime a U.S. city taken over, in my opinion, an activist terrorist group taking over a U.S. city. I mean, I'm not trying to get political, but let's call a spade a spade. It's not a peaceful takeover.
You're talking about Seattle, Washington.
Right. And it's like, how in my lifetime did this happen?
I'm interested to see how the supply chain works. I'm going to guess that there's not one single supply chain professional in that 7-block area, that there isn't somebody who's a logistics guy, that there isn't somebody who is a mechanic. I'm just guessing based on the things that I've seen. So I'm interested to see what happens when supplies run out, what they do. Because, as we know, global supply chain is a whole thing. And if we look around our house, there are products from more than one country all over the house. Which means that it's cheaper and it's more efficient to get certain products from certain countries.
Right. What are they going to do when they have an internal struggle with no processes in place?
Look at you talking about processes, bud. There are no workflows.
Well, I mean, it's just going to be like, hey, we did this thing.
Now what? There's never the then.
We're in control. This is a lawless. I mean, this is just, it's crazy. And Seattle is a booming city. Construction's booming.
Beautiful city too.
Beautiful city. It's the next. It's what, number 2 in the tech area of the United States.
Well,
outside.
Microsoft is just up the road.
Yeah, I think Amazon has some hubs there. My thing is, they're all going to move out now. I mean, I'm sorry. Minnesota is going to take a huge hit.
But it's not just that. Remember, we're talking about...
If you live there...
Well, we're talking about supply chain and currencies, right? people are going to refuse. They're already refusing routes to LA. Truckers are refusing routes to LA, to Seattle, to these cities because they don't want the trouble. And, they don't want bad things to happen to them and their cargo.
Well, look at what happened in '92. Reginald Denny got his head smashed in a riot. So I know we went down a few uncharted paths today. Did I pronounce paths correctly? No.
You're all right.
Do I get a pass? But guys, what I want you to do is open up charts, equities, Forex, whatever it is you're into. And I want you to go back through, just go on like a daily chart, 4-hour daily chart. Go back and look at the biggest reversals on those charts. Find the double top or double bottom. It will be there. I promise you. And start recognizing that pattern as it's happening. And then understand when you plant that seed, that you plant that trade, price is going to try to fake you out. It's going to push a little higher, push a little lower, come back, maybe triple bottom, triple top. But if you hold that line, you will find it is one of the best patterns to look for big reversals. That's all I got.
Thank you very much for listening. Please join us next week.
Over and out.
If you'd like to learn more about Clayton signals, please visit www.allenfx.com. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram @OFPMatt.